A girl left the gym, heading home just a few hundred yards away, but she never made it, sparking a massive police search that eventually turned into one of Italy's most infamous cases, shocking millions. No one could have predicted that the twists and turns of this case would rival any detective film. Yara Gambaro was born on May 21, 1997, in a small Italian town called Brembate di Sopra, located not far from Milan. With a population of just over 7,000, the town was known for its peaceful lifestyle, historic architecture, and beautiful nature. Yara's family had lived there for generations. She had loving parents, an older sister, and two younger brothers. Yara adored her hometown, attending the local school, making plenty of friends, and being active in gymnastics. Just a short distance from her home was a large sports center where she frequently trained. On November 26, 2010, when Yara was 13, she planned to quickly drop off a stereo at the gym for her coach around 5:15 p.m. After saying goodbye to her parents, she headed out, telling them she'd be back in an hour. Her parents weren't concerned about her being out alone because the town was considered very safe. However, as 7 p.m. approached and she still hadn't returned, her parents began to worry. When they tried calling her at 7:11 p.m., the phone went straight to voicemail. Concerned, they contacted the police immediately. Detective Letizia Ruggeri, a seasoned investigator, was assigned the case. She quickly dispatched officers to the town and called in military police for additional support. After speaking to Yara's parents, investigators went to the gym to gather information about her last movements. The coach confirmed Yara had stopped by around 5:30 p.m., and friends saw her chat, do some exercises, and then leave for home. At 6:44 p.m., Yara sent a text to a friend, marking the last contact anyone had with her. The police determined Yara disappeared sometime between the sports center and her home. The investigation split into different teams. One searched the streets, while another focused on witnesses and CCTV footage. Some locals reported seeing a girl resembling Yara talking to two men near a red car, but the police couldn't confirm if it was actually her. Despite an exhaustive search of the sports complex and surrounding areas, no sign of Yara was found. Canine units were brought in, and the dogs tracked her scent in the opposite direction, toward a small town called Mello. Yara's cell phone data showed it had connected to a tower in Mello at 6:49 p.m., just 5 minutes after she texted her friend. Since the distance made it unlikely Yara walked there, it was assumed she had been transported by a vehicle. The police had two main theories. She had been kidnapped or perhaps ran away, though the latter seemed unlikely, as Yara had made plans for the next day. Investigators started interviewing Yara's family and friends, but there were no signs of conflict at home. They also requested phone data from everyone in Mello that night, tracking down 15,000 phones. A special team worked tirelessly to monitor suspicious numbers. Despite the ongoing search, no leads materialized. The breakthrough came when, weeks later, an officer overheard a suspicious phone call from a man named Mohammed Fiki, a construction worker from Morocco who lived in Mello. In his conversation, he said, "Forgive me, Lord, I didn't kill her," which raised alarm. Authorities tracked him down, but by then Fiki had already boarded a ship to Morocco. The police intercepted the ship, arrested him, and brought him back to Italy. A search of his car revealed a blood-stained mattress in the trunk, but DNA tests revealed the blood wasn't Yara's and didn't even belong to a human. Furthermore, Fiki's phone conversation had been misinterpreted. Upon further investigation, it was found that the officer had mistranslated his words. After additional checks, Fiki was cleared, and Yara's case returned to square one. Yara's disappearance became one of Italy's most followed cases, with millions of people hoping for her safe return. But when news of Fiki's arrest hit the media and his innocence was revealed, it was a huge disappointment as the search continued with no new leads. Then 3 months later, on February 26, 2011, a man flying a remote-controlled airplane in a nearby field discovered a body beneath a pile of rags. Upon closer inspection, he realized it was a human body, and after police arrived, they identified it as Yara. She was wearing the same clothes she had worn when she left the sports center 3 months earlier. Nearby, they found her iPad, house keys, SIM card, and the removable battery from her cell phone, though the phone itself was missing. Forensic experts confirmed that Yara had died from multiple stab wounds. There were no signs of assault, but some of her clothing had been removed, suggesting possible motives. DNA samples found on her gloves and the phone battery didn't match anyone in the databases, leaving investigators at a dead end. Months later, experts re-examined her belongings and discovered biological material on her underwear. This time, they were able to extract a full DNA profile of an unknown man. With this new lead, Letizia split her team to gather DNA from Yara's family, acquaintances, and everyone in the area that night. The process was slow, but the hope of identifying the killer was renewed. The investigation into Yara's murder was long and complex, spanning years without significant leads. Despite collecting thousands of DNA samples, the police couldn't find a match for the killer. However, Letitia, the lead investigator, had a theory. Killers often leave their victims' bodies in familiar places. She knew of a nightclub near where Yara's body was discovered, a place frequented by people with criminal backgrounds. Letitia decided to test her theory by collecting DNA samples from everyone who visited the nightclub, hoping to find a match. Eventually, a partial DNA match was found with a man named Damiano, but he was quickly ruled out since he was abroad at the time of the murder. Despite this setback, investigators focused on Damiano's family, suspecting a connection to the killer. They discovered that Damiano's mother had worked as a housekeeper for Yara's family, which added a strange twist to the case. The case continued to stall, with the media criticizing Letitia and her team for their lack of progress. Yet Letitia remained determined. In September 2011, they finally made a breakthrough after investigating the family tree of a man named JPY, who was deceased. DNA samples extracted from his postmarks led them to believe he was related to the killer. They further investigated his sons but found no matches. However, they suspected JPY may have had an affair, resulting in an illegitimate child who could be the killer. Years later, investigators discovered JPY's possible mistress, a woman named Esther Artui. She had already been tested for DNA, but initial results were inconclusive. A second round of testing revealed shocking news. Esther was, in fact, the killer's mother. With this new information, investigators turned their attention to her son, a 42-year-old construction worker named Massimo BT, who lived near where Yara's phone signal had last been detected. To collect a DNA sample without raising suspicion, investigators set up a sobriety checkpoint where BTI was stopped. After analyzing his saliva, it was confirmed that his DNA matched the sample found on Yara's body. Massimo BTI was arrested on June 16, 2015, but he denied any involvement in the crime. BTI's defense argued he was innocent and claimed that DNA evidence could have been mishandled. They also suggested the killer might have come into contact with his blood before the crime. However, the prosecution presented overwhelming evidence, and BTI was convicted in 2016 and sentenced to life in prison. This case remains one of the most notorious in modern Italian history, with the likelihood of BTI's innocence being extremely low.